What if one of the most important things you do in the first week of class has nothing to do with the syllabus? Early in the semester, students are paying attention to everything, not just what you teach, but how you teach. Are you approachable? Is it safe to ask questions here? And is this a class where I can actually succeed? Welcome to the What and Who of EDU, the show where educators and thought leaders join us to share their strategies and stories straight from today's classroom. Whether you're looking to boost student confidence, build belonging, or figure out where AI fits in, we're here with clear, actionable ideas that you can use right away. I'm your host, Marissa Bluestone, and today we're counting down 10 instructor-tested ways to build trust early. No course redesign or personality transplant required. Tip 1. Show up ready, because preparation reads as respect. First week trust is like wet cement. Students are forming impressions before you finish taking attendance, and one late entrance can leave a footprint. Dr. Edward Lee teaches chemistry and coordinates laboratory courses at Texas A&M University, and he knows just how quickly students can clock the little things.
So it's really important, I think, for students to think that you're at least appear to be well prepared and ready. I think it seems obvious, but even just, showing up to class late, early in the semester can just dissolve some of the trust that students have and what the expectations are for them and make sure that you're on time and ready to do that. Something that I consciously do is really make sure early in the semester, especially to open the floor up like for questions and sort of answer them in a truthful and honest manner. I think, whether it's the first day of class when you're just going over some of the policies and things like that, or just early in the semester when, you're still getting to know each other, having some of that unstructured time where students can get to know you on a personal level, but also maybe having a truthful and honest conversation about the content that you are trying to talk about, I think builds that trust, right? And so that you can talk about the human aspect of your understanding or challenges with the material itself, whether it's an opinion or just when you were a student yourself trying to learn the material, how you maybe didn't have success the first time that you encountered it, and how you had to find another way or another approach that made it work.
In other words, the complete opposite of the trust me, bro model. Showing up on time is easy when there's a room to walk into. Now, online, showing up takes a little bit more effort. Tip 2. Be a person, not a portal. Show up and then keep showing up. An online course can feel a little bit like a very organized escape room. Tabs everywhere, deadlines blinking, and no obvious human being in sight. Betsy Langness, the psychology department head at Jefferson Community and Technical College, solves that problem early.
To try to build student trust, especially in an online class at the beginning of the semester, I like to show up as a real person. In the first week, I post a welcome video just about me, because going into a classroom for the first time, especially when no one is there to greet you, can be somewhat overwhelming and you're not sure where to start. So it is nice to have that welcome video, letting students know that I'm human, I am here on the other side of the computer, and that they can engage with me and ask lots of questions. This is some class that they are taking that is a correspondence course, and they will never have interaction with people. I think that clarity goes a long way, especially for online students, because they can feel so unsure and disconnected. And I also try to respond very quickly in the first few weeks. giving them encouraging announcements or replies like, hey, you did a great job on your discussion, but remember, I can't grade it until you post again. So those sorts of things, not really criticizing them, just giving them reminders and supporting them so they understand.
Students should not need a full Wizard of Oz reveal to discover there's actually an instructor behind the screen. Now, a welcome video proves you exist. Jennifer Duncan's weekly check-ins prove you did not disappear entirely after the syllabus week.
Because I teach fully online, one of the most important things that I have learned really over the last few years, more than ever, not even like long term, but probably in the last 2 years, the importance of showing my face in the class, of actually taking the time to do a little weekly check-in where you see my face in my office and they see that I'm really there and I'm really willing to have a conversation with them. I think that's really important to provide that humanizing element in a class so that they realize that we're there, because then they feel like they can talk to me about something, whether it is something course related or life related, because we know from teaching online, most of our students who don't succeed, it has nothing to do with the course content. It has something to do outside their life. And if they don't trust me to be someone who can listen because they don't see me as a person, then I'm not going to be able to teach them the content.
Online trust is not built through one instructor cameo. It comes from showing up again and again, especially after the first week enthusiasm has left the group chat. Tip 3. Leave the pedestal at home. A little vulnerability lowers the distance. Some instructors feel pressure to arrive on day one as the all-knowing professor from central casting, completely untouched by sick kids or bad weeks. Marissa Dahri, the undergraduate course coordinator in the Department of Molecular and Cellular Biology at the University of Guelph, does the opposite. She talks honestly about her life through what she calls living pedagogy.
So something that I like to do to build trust with my students early on in the semester is humanize myself from day one. So whether that's talking about my kids and the fact that we dealt with, gastro last week, and, just something to bring it back to this. I am a human. I have a life outside of here. I can respect and honor that you do as well. And this is how I'd like us to relate, human to human. Because I came across this pedagogy that I just fell in love with, and it was called, it's kind of this response to AI, but it's called the living pedagogy. And it's basically this reclamation of the human elements of teaching. And it really shifts the focus from the kind of this top-down transmission of knowledge from, the all-knowing instructor to the student to, hey, we are humans in this room doing this course together. We are co-creating an educational experience, not just for you as the students, but also for me as the teacher. I am learning how my teaching is effective or not effective based on how you are receiving and comprehending the content. And so just keep bringing it back to this, we're on the same playing field. We are here together. We're doing this together. And I see the human in you. I want you to see the human in me. So yeah, if I can say something to kind of share my own vulnerability early on, I think they respond to that in ways that surprise me still. And I find if they are struggling or there are things that they need support with, at least surrounding academics, of course, but they're more willing to come to me and to share that. And I would so much more rather give someone a 48-hour extension on something because, their dog passed away or they went through a tough breakup or something, than have them not tell me, struggle emotionally and mentally and psychologically on their own, and then end up using AI or, plagiarize their work just because they think they have to get it in by that deadline.
Teaching, as it turns out, isn't something done to a room. It's something built with one. So you've shown them who you are. Now it's time to prove you know who they are. Tip 4. Names are currency. Spend them early. Few things say, "I see you," faster than using a student's name before they've decided that they're invisible. Dr. Kendra Thomas, Associate Professor of Psychology at Hope College and co author of The Developing Person Through the Lifespan, has a name for what a name does in a crowded room.
Learn names quickly. That it feels a little bit like a friendly flex to be able to use a student's name very quickly in the semester. And, just affirming a comment that they gave or when they walk into the room, especially when it's very clear that you have a lot of students using a name. Now, using a name if it's the wrong name is horrible. I've had that experience. It's probably had that experience. But names and then humor. It's one of the best feelings. Getting a class to laugh is one of the coolest things about that will easily make my day if I can make the classroom laugh. Um, and I think that the humor and knowing names build trust quickly.
Learning a name is a small move with a big message. You're not just row 3, seat 4. Think of it as the classroom version of Cheers, only with fewer bar stools and significantly more discussion posts. Knowing someone's name is step 1. Getting them to actually walk through the door, that's step 2. Tip 5. Turn strangers into friends. 5 minutes can change the next. A roster tells you who's registered. It does not tell you who came from 3 states away, who loves music, or who is daydreaming about medical school. Dr. Dave Myers, professor of psychology at Hope College and author of the world's best-selling psychology textbook, looks out at a first-day class and sees strangers. So he changes that, 5 minutes at a time.
On the very first day of the semester, I walk into the class and I see 35 students who are strangers to me, and I feel a little bit threatened by them. Maybe they're a little intimidated by me. So I do something that takes a day of my time, but it really has worked for me. And that is, if I have 2 sections of introductory psychology, 35 students each, 70 students in all, I'll invite every one of them to sign up for a 5-minute time the next day to come in and speak to me in my office. I'll schedule 12 an hour so I can do 70 students in 7 hours easily. They come in, 90+% will remember and arrive, and I welcome them to my office. I ask them, "Where's home for you? What drew you here to Hope College, where I am and you are? What do you love? What are you dreaming about doing?" And then close by reminding them that this is where I am and my door is always open to you and you should feel free to come back anytime. And we have some spontaneous conversation around that. Then the next class period, I walk in and suddenly, instead of strangers whom I'm having to connect with, these are 35 friends that I'm looking at, and they have a new comfort level and I hope trust level with me. So that's my little strategy. Takes a very long day to do it, but it is always paying dividends.
5 minutes will not tell you everything you need to know about a student, but it does tell them that they're worth knowing, and that's enough to make the next conversation feel like a second one. Hooray! Tip 6. Let them bring backup. It makes asking for help a little less lonely. For students, going to visit the professor can feel intimidating, especially for first-year students. Dr. Kevin Revelle, who teaches chemistry at Murray State University, is the author of Macmillan Learning's Introductory Chemistry and General Chemistry, and serves as the Assistant Dean for the MSU Jones College of Science, Engineering, and Technology, takes the solo pressure out of asking for help.
One of the things that I really try to get students to do is to be willing to come ask questions when they are stuck. And I will talk to my students and say, look, if you're not getting this, please come see me. Sometimes I will even say, look, I'm sitting in my office during office hours and I have to play Tetris because you're not coming to see me, which of course is totally not true. I've got more than enough to do. But the point is I'm trying to get them to come see me and feel welcome to come talk to me. One of the things I will say is, you're welcome to, grab two friends, come see me. Y'all just schedule a time, bring a couple people, we'll work problems, it'll be low stress, we're all friends here, let's get this thing figured out.
Turns out the cure for office hours Tetris may be a little academic backup. Let students bring a friend or two, and asking for help starts to feel a little less like a confession and more like a study strategy. Tip 7. Put help on the calendar and normalize support before students need it. Dr. Ravel lowers the social stakes. Well, now you just need students to decide that it's actually time to ask for help. Most students treat office hours like the glass box around a fire extinguisher. Break only in case of emergency. Dr. Kristen Monroe, the Educational Research Associate at the Center for Innovation in Teaching and Learning at the University of Illinois, changes that by making the first visit a graded assignment.
I encourage all of my students to come to office hours. It's actually a graded assignment. And during those one-on-one office hour meetings, they're just, 10, 15 minutes. I always ask, is there anything you think I should know about you that might affect your academics? For me, I know going in that my students have learning differences, but it's important to acknowledge that there are many things that impact students outside of the classroom. Things like having a job off campus, things like having a family member that's sick or having family obligation. Striking that conversation early in the semester and allowing the student to feel comfortable to share that is such an important thing to establish that relationship. I always tell my students that deadlines are my kryptonite, but my superpower is problem solving and fixing. So the sooner they can tell me information about something that might affect their academics, the more power I have to fix it. But the closer we get to the deadline, as the Superman reference, that kryptonite will get me and I won't be able to help them as much as I would have.
No cape required. Just a conversation before the deadline starts glowing green. Now, once students know that help is expected, the next question is how we can make that work inside the classroom. Tip 8. Let students catch you. Make corrections feel safe. Authority feels far less intimidating when students learn that it can survive being corrected. Dr. Daniel M. Lucht, the Charles A. Dana Professor of Mathematics at St. Lawrence University, turns his own mistakes into a class-wide bonus. Catch an error, roll a 4-sided die, and everyone gets the points.
Being open about mistakes and making sure they know mistakes are part of the learning process. So encouraging students to take risks, letting them know your answer may not be correct, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have use or value to the class. And one way I do that is I give very minimal bonus points. These go towards different things, either extra extension tokens if you're doing something like that, where you have a limited number of free extensions in a class, or actual soft lifts on quizzes or exams. And one of the bonus point opportunities comes from anytime I make a mistake. If a student calls it out, then the student rolls a 4-sided dice. Anytime you can get Dungeons and Dragons dice into a classroom, it's a good thing. And everybody in the class gets those points, whatever's rolled. I didn't want just the strong students kind of getting even more points and advantage for being, outgoing and loquacious. And so everybody gets raised up a bit. The benefit of this is that they're rewarded for calling out errors that I make. And that, I think, shows that errors are expected, right? They're not going to be punished for correcting me. I'm not embarrassed if I make a mistake. It's part of the process. It's part of what happens. And I think just announcing that policy, I sometimes see a shift in the students when they realize, okay, I'm rewarded for finding mistakes. This is not a sign of lack of ability. It's part of the process.
The point is not really the four-sided die. It's showing students that correction is not confrontation and that nobody loses status by getting something wrong. Tip 9. Use play to lower the stakes. Low-stakes silliness makes participation safer. Mr. Owl never settled on how many licks it takes to reach the center of a Tootsie Pop. Dr. Jennifer Ripley Stickle, a teaching professor and non-majors biology program director at West Virginia University, turns that unfinished business into a scientific method experiment.
Early in the semester, usually during the first week, I do a hands-on activity, and it usually involves some type of treat and has no point value. So, for instance, in my 250-seat introductory biology class, we practice a scientific method with Tootsie Pops. So I bring in a case of Tootsie Pops from Sam's Club. I actually have to bring in 2 cases, 3 cases of them. And first thing we do is I ask the question, what is the question with Tootsie Pops? And everyone will say, how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? So how do we frame that into a hypothesis? Then what we have to do is we have to standardize what a lick is. So I'll pull some students up to the front and I'll have them demonstrate a lick. And I'll even demonstrate a lick. And just having a student lick a lollipop during the first week of class is hysterical because some people will put the whole thing in their mouth. Some people will take it literally and put their tongue out and lick it, which nobody eats a Tootsie Pop that way. But for some reason, that's what they'll do in front of the class. And then we talk about controlling for variables. So do we need a control for flavor? When you look at a Tootsie Pop, it has a ridge. Are we considering the Tootsie coming through the ridge area or the non-ridge area? And then finally, after all that, we'll experiment and eat the Tootsie Pop. So it's a very simple, cheap experiment that I can do with any size class. And it allows them to see that we're going to have a fun semester. We're going to learn together. And it's okay to be silly. And their professor is probably going to be one of the silliest because I always participate as well.
Play is not the opposite of rigor. Sometimes it's the permission slip that gets students participating in it. And somewhere in West Virginia, 250 students have had a serious academic conversation about ridge versus non-ridge licking techniques. Tip 10. Design a class that looks winnable. Students can smell a weed-out course from a mile away. Dr. Ryan Herzog, Associate Professor of Economics, Program Coordinator, and Faculty Fellow at Gonzaga University, designs for the opposite. Clear expectations, a fair start, and room to question a grade or a deadline.
I try as much as possible to be approachable. I try as much as possible to design a class for students to see that they should be and can be successful. I'm not there to, weed out students or, hey, we have to have this necessary curve in the grade. So I just try to connect with students in a way that I'm real with them, I'm honest with them. We start pretty slow. I'm very open with them about my expectations. They're very open with me. I've now been teaching for 16, 17 years at Gonzaga. There's a reputation that I'm able to rely on to a degree, as students know they can come to me, they can ask me questions, that I'm going to be fair, that I'm open. If a student doesn't think I did something right, or I graded them too hard on an exam, or I have a due date and it wasn't well advertised in advance, they all feel comfortable asking me. And I encourage that, right? Like, if you have a question about something I've done, please ask me, because I would rather you ask me why I did something than have you walk away frustrated for no reason. And so I've been really good about connecting with the students, joking with them, having fun with them, making sure they recognize that I'm there to help them learn the material, and I want to be there to help support them in that process.
The material can be hard. It's supposed to be. But the course shouldn't make them feel like they're auditioning for the academic version of Survivor. Today we talked about 10 ways instructors build trust before students have had much evidence to go on. Trust is not built in one dazzling moment. It's a pile of tiny receipts. You showed up ready. You answered honestly. You remembered a name. You made help easier to find. And sometimes you also bought 3 cases of Tootsie Pops. None of these moves requires a complete course overhaul, and that's kind of the point. The next time a semester starts, choose one receipt. It could be a 45-second welcome video, 5 names that you remember, a short check-in, or a few minutes for the questions students are still deciding whether to ask. No grand gestures and no trust falls required. Know the colleague who remembers every student's name by week 2 and somehow also knows the name of everyone's dog? Send them this episode and ask them to reveal their system. Then follow the What and Who of EDU wherever you listen to podcasts. It helps more educators find practical ideas they can use before the first week turns into the 4th. And if you have a small trust-building move of your own, email us at thewhatandwhoofedu@macmillan.com. I'm Marissa Bluestone, and this is The What and Who of EDU. We'll see you next time.